Hi, so we're Cinema Worms. This is Linz. I'm Zabib, and
Hello.
this is our very first video episode. So these are our faces.
We do have them. We are real people. We are not AI worms.
So Linz will introduce the film we're talking about, which is 28 Years Later. So we're doing a trio of reviews. We've seen the whole trilogy within the last 2 weeks. Although
Yeah.
it's not going to be just a trilogy. Apparently they're going to be several more films.
We're doing the Hunger Games stretch it out version, but I am quite excited about it, so I'm not complaining too much. More of this, more of the zombies. We're back to this.
We love zombies.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Let's dive right into the horror. So, 28 years later brings us to the brand new part of this epic series. We're back to having Danny Boyle as director, Alex Garland as writer, with cinematographer Anthony Dodd Mantle. All three of them worked on the first film, 28 Days Later. Oh, wow. Mantle actually won an Oscar for his work on Danny Boyle's 2008 Slumdog Millionaire, and he worked on one of your recent favourites that I didn't enjoy at all, The Penguin Friend. Which is
favorite's a strong word,
okay,
but I enjoyed
but you enjoyed it somewhat. So to start with, 28 years later, we start with a frankly horrifying cold open that I don't want to really spoiler because it will live in my head forever. Before we move on to the main plot. Now, the film stars 14-year-old Alfie Williams, who had a small part in his Dark Materials TV show, which I didn't see, as 12-year-old Spike, who lives on a small island connected to the mainland by just a causeway, which you can only access at low tides. Spike's dad, Jamie, played by a surprisingly thick beard connected to Aaron Taylor Johnson's face, has groomed young Spike as a fellow hunter and tough guy from quite an early age, despite the fact that the kid is more sensitive and not really that much like his dad at all. Spike's mum, Isla, who is played so beautifully by the wonderful Jodie Comer, is suffering from some kind of illness which renders her mostly bedbound with terrible headaches and waves of erratic confusion. And Spike's determination to get his mum some help causes him to make some quite rash decisions throughout the course of the film that we'll talk about, which luckily introduces the audience to Ray Fiennes' supposedly unhinged character, Dr. Kelson, although I would argue maybe Dr. Kelson is the most sane of anybody in this film. And threaded amongst the plot are changes and updates to our ideas of what or who the infected are or can be. Now, 28 Years Later is not a film that gives us complete closure. I actually only heard this was the first part of a video before we went in, and you didn't know at all. I'm glad that we did know, because I think...
You warned me right before.
Yeah, and I think if we hadn't known, we would have been a bit annoyed. There is kind of this shroud of secrecy around two-parters at the moment. Same with Wicked, remember? They didn't really kind of publicise the fact that it was a part of the first part of something. And it feels like filmmakers are a bit worried that audiences might not go and see something if they think it's the first part.
Bait and switch.
Yes, it is a little bit... I would prefer to know. I'm okay to go see a first part of something, but I feel like there's a bit of a reticence to, oh, maybe we'll just see it when the full thing is out. And I'm like, it's not like seeing the first half of a movie. This is a full movie unto itself. So we will talk later. We will talk with spoilers about the absolutely bonkers and insane ending, which is very tonally different from the rest of the film. But could we first talk about the main premise of 28 Years Later? Oh my god, hit me with all of your thoughts.
Yeah, and don't worry, we'll only talk about this spoiler discussion of the end at the very, very end.
And we will flag it by screaming spoilers over and over.
Spoiler! Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved this film. And, I mean, it's like right up my alley. It's horrifying and exciting. And it's really interesting that they decided to revisit this story so many years later, because you've seen so many zombie stories like The Walking Dead. This shares a lot of similarities with The Last of Us, although I enjoyed this probably the most of all zombie things that I've seen, and it really has so many of the strengths of the first film, but updated in ways that it kind of had to be.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really compare them. This is decades later, and we're in a landscape where you have tons of zombie films, and the things that the first film innovated are now needing to be built on. And I think they did an amazing job just creating this whole world.
Yeah.
And again, Alex Garland coming in brilliantly with his writing, because it's just like, it's like a writer's wet dream to be able to create so many stakes and tension and to be so lean and to have so much momentum just right off the bat. Like, I don't even know how you can do that.
Not a lot of places in the film. In fact, I'm struggling to think of a single place where I thought, like, okay, I'm done with the scene, move it on. I was happy to be there, and everything felt, as you say, pretty lean. There was not a lot of spare fat kicking around that had
So
to be
lean.
shorn off. And the places where we did linger a little bit, it was absolutely worth doing so.
Yeah, it's very minimalist, but in a way that I think works. Like, there's not a lot, like tons of complexity to the dialogue or anything, or except maybe, you have some deeper philosophical ideas later on with Ralph Fiennes' character.
Well, Ray Fiennes, you got to give that Shakespearean actor something to chew on. Oh, and Chewie does. He's having a gristly good time with this one.
What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I thought it was a lovely return to the simplistic, lean, but beautifully composed 28 Days Later, which, we talked about at some length on the podcast. I really feel like 28 Weeks suffers as being kind of a sad bit of meat in between two, like, sourdough ends of a sandwich, of a zombie sandwich. And yeah, you're right, like, we have seen at this point, we've seen an awful lot of zombie films. We've seen plant zombies, we've seen, Warm Bodies with Nicholas Hoult, where Romeo and Juliet was zombies.
I never saw that.
It's pretty good. I liked it. As well as, like, some foreign language ones that I'm thinking of, like Wreck. But there's something really nice about getting back to kind of the bare basic bones of something. And what Danny Boyle created and Alex Garland created with the original feels like it has its spirit back with this one. I was compelled the whole way through. Everyone's kind of doing an amazing job. It felt like this village was quite, we're not there for very long, but it feels like, okay, they've been safe, that, they're comfortable, they haven't let their guard down completely, but they are safe. And having Aaron Taylor Johnson's character pushing his son, Alfie Williams, to go out when he's just 12, and the kind of one of the elders of the village says, oh, we usually have, it's like 14 or 15, and he's like, no, he's ready, like,
to basically get his kills on the mainland.
To get his kills. And it's sort of, you can see, like, even in that dynamic, he doesn't have to spell it out. There's no need to have a big conversation about how, oh, I wish my dad had done this for me, or like, oh, and you'll be a man. It's just like, we're doing this, and it's very clear what the purpose is. They don't even need to talk about it. And to me, that's like a really interesting and really good sign of, like, the narrative working. You shouldn't need to do a bunch of exposition. Your characters, if they live in this world, they shouldn't need to talk, like, to each other about things they already know. I don't need to tell you that, like, we breathe air, because you already know that. Like, it feels, it's, as you know, Bob, you're my uncle, as you...
We should link to that great explanation of, what do we call it? I'm blanking. When you do too much exposition.
Yeah, it's an exposition. But, like, that I really particularly hate, it's a bugbear for me. It's a little pet peeve that I carry around with me in my pocket, is I hate when characters talk to each other about something they should already know, unless they're yelling at each other.
Yeah, arguments are great.
Which is fine.
I think that's down to the direction. I mean, writing, yes, but really the direction being very kinetic, and also the performances. So I'm sure you'll comment on this as well. But the reason you can understand the dynamic between Aaron Taylor Johnson's father and the actor who plays Spike, or the character of Spike, is because of the performances, and specifically Aaron Taylor Johnson and Jodie Comer. Aaron Taylor Johnson is bringing this tense body language, a real sort of depth where he's moody but loving, but like torn about how to protect his son, and that's all conveyed in performance. So even though the dialogue between them is sparse and pretty straightforward, you get all of that context. he's really bringing in that sort of underlying fear and hypervigilance and rage. And then Jodie Comer is amazing because she has to play
When
this
is
character
Jodie
who's
Comer
like,
not amazing?
yeah,
Show
exactly.
me, because I love Jodie Comer.
Yeah.
I at this point, I think I might idolize Jodie Comer a little bit.
Oh, you love her.
I do. She's just so good at everything, and seeing her play like a character who doesn't have a lot of agency and who is actually very baffled by like repeatedly finding herself in places and situations that she's not quite sure what to do is such a departure from what we normally see her doing. I mean, if we think like she kind of exploded into the public consciousness a lot with Killing Eve, and she plays like a very hyper effective assassin, like to see her doing something else, especially something that seems like such a confused character, which we might normally expect to see in like older actors playing like, you know, dementia patients or something like someone who's been affected by like aging, but to see someone so young do it as well, it felt really interesting. But I know what you say about Taylor Johnson. I completely agree. Like, he is loving Spike in the way that he understands, which is keeping him safe, and in order to keep him safe he has to turn him into a killer. That's how he thinks about it, and he's like, it's kill or be killed.
That really is. It's a new world order.
Yeah.
Are we headed towards it? Anyway, Jodie Comer is really interesting as that disturbed woman. I agree. Yeah. And you see flashes of this like more grounded, not disturbed person underneath, and the halfway point where we meet, is it halfway or whatever?
Yeah, it's about halfway.
Where we meet Ralph Fiennes' character. Rafe Fiennes. I've been saying it wrong my whole life. That, without spoiling it. That is disturbing and bizarre and almost like, oh, that's the vibe you get when
I
you're
actually
watching
have
it.
in my notes that there was a point at which, and I do not want to spoil this because I think this is really important that the audience goes and sees this part for themselves, but there was a certain point where you get to Ray Fiennes' home, and we were so horrified and awed, and we do not normally like look at each other that much while a film is happening, but I turned to you and your jaw was dropped, and I know mine was as well, and there was a look of horrified awe and recognition on your face that I'm sure was mirrored on mine, and I remember thinking, oh god, you just realised what was going on at the same time as me, and it was just,
they knew what they were doing.
Wow, okay. Bloody hell.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know how I didn't see it coming, but I should have, but wow, and that was something that I don't want to take away from.
It's a visual spectacle that is unnerving and horrifying and surprising.
It was something. And also just watching Ray Fiennes run around, like, looking like he's covered in blood the whole time, just kind of chilling in the forest by himself. You know, apparently if you become a GP, you learn all kinds of skills. Useful skills for zombie apocalypses.
He's a good doctor. And it's quite a meditation on death, isn't it? It really turns into something, atmospheric.
They have that line in the trailer that he says, there are many kinds of death. Some are worse than others.
Yeah. And you let us know what you think. It's something between, it's not a serial killer homage situation he has going on. It's more, I think, of a test. He's trying to honor the dead in how he acts.
Yeah, and I think this is something that, of course, could not have happened in 28 Days Later, but to have a character who's doing that now feels like it makes perfect sense. It starts off, as you mentioned, I think in something you were recording a TikTok short or something the other day, and you were talking about how it begins with this poem from Rudyard Kipling, which is about the horrors of war, which is being read. And of course, Ray Fiennes is going on about memento mori, remember, like death, remember that you will die, we will all die. And the whole thing, like when it begins as well with that Rudyard Kipling poem, and which by the way is some sort of horrendous, but at the same time so compelling. It made me feel deeply uncomfortable, and it's interspersed with these kind of images of war, and the whole thing is like,
yeah, that was so cool.
Yeah, this is another kind of war, but previously it had been kind of against ourselves, and now it is still against ourselves, but we have so othered the infected that we can no longer see them as anything other than monsters. And that kind of, again, feels like this is a film that's actually about warfare and not about zombies.
Speaking of, we loved warfare.
I didn't see it.
What?
I wasn't there. Maybe you took one of your other girlfriends.
Oh shit.
If
We
you have
loved
time for another
it.
girlfriend, like, honestly, fair play to you.
No one has time for
fair
that.
play to you. In this economy, wow. Okay. Who can afford one?
Yeah, I did a review then of Warfare in one of our other episodes, another Alex Garland film, and also revisited Civil War. So good films to look at once or see once you've seen this film.
You've been such a Garland kick recently as
He
well.
does not. I mean, I've seen like all his films. It's been for years now that I've watched all his films. Okay. Should we? Okay. Before we do a spoiler discussion of the end, a non-spoiler discussion. It went off the deep end, and they were planning it the whole time, the bastards. But it's sort of almost like attached to the movie.
It does feel like the tail has been pinned on the donkey a little bit at the end. And I had accidentally seen on Reddit someone saying that there was something insane at the end. It was completely bonkers, and they weren't expecting it. And so I knew to expect something, which is annoying because I like to not. I don't want to know that the twist is coming necessarily, but I was also really curious, and I didn't mention that to you. So should we do a spoiler shout now? Okay. Spoiler! Okay, we can talk. We're free.
Okay. What the hell?
What the hell?
Dude!
Okay, wait. So you're missing some British context for this, okay? So as we see the Teletubbies at the start of this, I don't know if you noticed at the end they were kind of dressed in similar
I know Teletubbies.
Okay, but they were dressed in similar.
Yeah. They all have colors.
Jack McConnell and his little band of velour tracksuited miscreants turns up and does some ninja shit, but they are dressed in the Teletubby kind of colours, and you won't know this because not British, and because we no longer like to remember this person exists, but do you know who Jimmy Savile is?
He's a perv.
He was a paedophile, yeah. So Jack McConnell's character, he's called Jimmy, he's dressed in the way that Jimmy Savile used to dress. It's like this fuller tracksuit thing that is instantly quite recognisable. It is not a good herald of things to come, in my opinion, for Alfie or Williams's character, Spike, or for anyone who happens to come across these just insane people. But tonally, because I knew that was coming, I knew something was coming anyway. I don't think anyone could have predicted that. What the hell were you thinking when that happened?
Yeah, so set up, Alfie's, for some dumbass reason, gone back out onto the mainland, and he encounters these blonde Aryan ninjas.
I don't know, we should call them that, but yeah, sure.
It's probably racist. Yeah. So, yeah. I was like, it was supposed to be funny, but I was just like in shock, and I was like, why are they doing ballerina flips as they kill the zombies?
Well, you might as well be graceful if you're gonna do it.
Yeah, but really the issue I had was like, why are they all blonde? And with blonde hair to here, like, are they all wearing wigs?
Well,
are they bleaching their hair and growing it out? I suspect it's the latter, and that they're in some sort of cult.
Well, I suspect that firstly, it fully looks like a cult. He is the one who has blonde hair, and I think they're all copying him. Did you notice in the credits they were all called versions of his name? So there's like
good call,
Jimmy Mina and Jimmy Snake or Snake Jimmy or whatever the hell. I was like, what is going on? He
probably even called them by one of their names, and I just was too in shock to notice. I think
he might have actually. I mean, he did introduce himself. So I was so excited because I really have enjoyed seeing Jack McConnell pop up in things. He was last in Sinners. Finally, I feel like he's not had the career that I would like to have seen. A lot of the Skins cast have done quite well for themselves, and Jack McConnell really has.
O'Connell?
Yeah.
Is it O'Connell?
Is it McConnell?
Okay, well, we don't know.
We will find out. But he has had a career, but I'm like, I want to see you in bigger things, and now I'm starting to see him and stuff, and it's really, really exciting to see. He's a great actor. He was fantastic in Sinners. And again, it's almost a similar character. He conveys, like, barely veiled menace so well. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh, something horrible's about to go down. Look, he's popped up here. And I'm just so excited to see what the next one is called. Something like 28 years later, Temple of Bone or Bone Temple, something like that. So I'm like, yo, is this going to be another Ray Fiennes thing? Is this Jack Connell's?
Yeah, we are going to see, and I have it's going to depend on that ending, how we read it in retrospect. It's going to depend on the next film. So we highly recommend this film. The ending being crazy doesn't matter. But if you're here listening, it's probably like you've already seen it. Please share your thoughts. Anything else that stood out to you? I'd love to hear what you thought of the direction, just everything, visuals.
Favorite scene as well. Did you have a favorite scene? Because I'd love to hear that from our viewers, but I'd love to know what yours was.
I mean, some of my favorite stuff I would say is when the son and the father are going. When the son and the father are going out into the woods for the first time. Obviously, that's a extended series of scenes, but there are particular moments where they're being chased by the zombies, and then you see the alpha, and they're running into the house, and that was so tense and well done. Just it was visceral, well done, terrifying. And then when you encounter Ray Fiennes' character for the first time,
I genuinely did not know whether Aaron Taylor Johnson's character Jamie is. I was like, he could die right now.
Easily.
I do not feel like anybody's necessarily safe. Which was,
I think that might be happening in later films, but let's hope he's, well, never mind, I don't want to spoil anymore.
But him and his little beard, they were doing a good job, so they were trying their best. There was, and I know that we watched the Mark Kermode review because we like to watch Mark Kermode reviews and see what I feel like I mostly agree with him generally, with a couple of exceptions. And he said that he wasn't scared at any point. I did find this quite thrilling, and like you, there were points where I was like, okay, people are going to die here. I feel pretty convinced of that. The editing was very tight. It was a lot of the problems that I had with 28 Weeks Later was especially the crowd scenes, like in the underground when everything's kind of happening. The soldiers are putting the civilians in like a sort of warehouse to keep them safe. And the way that like the crowd scene was done there, I felt was really underdeveloped. It could have been edited in a different way to create that kind of horrible claustrophobic feeling, and it just didn't work. Whereas for this, even though the editing was similarly fast-paced, it did feel like it worked. I genuinely was waiting for one of those zombies to grab them at any moment. I particularly liked Jodie Comer like realizing in a moment of lucidity that she was the one who murdered the what I was thinking of the crawly baby zombie.
Yeah, the slug zombies.
The slugs, and I'm like, oh, they're just eating worms. And I felt really bad for him because he just tried to eat a worm and it was a shoelace, and he was like, so you could see he was so mad about it. I'm like, that's I feel bad for this guy. He's not trying to do anything. He was just trying to eat a worm.
Those slow zombies. But
awful, gross little things though.
We recommend the film.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you for being here for our first video episode.